to do this. Hey, oh, wait, oh,
I'm supposed to see you too, right?
yeah, hold on. We'll get this right. We'll get this right. Oh,
Oh, believe me, I've been through it all. There we
there we
go.
go. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. And Mark, thank you so much for being here. It's truly a pleasure to have you. I have been honored to be a guest on your show and your podcast numerous times. So
Yes,
I am finally able to return the favor.
yes, yes.
So
Though you did. We had a conversation on something you did on Blab long ago, far away. Remember Blab? I mean, I know it's a distant memory, but yeah, we did something on Blab once.
it was,
That
yeah.
you that was eons ago.
That was eons ago. So we have known each other for quite a long time. You were
Yeah.
one of the early people that I started following. And you had, because you had, there were very few, when we started, Mark, do you remember there were very few people writing and
Yes.
talking about job
Hmm.
search? There were no
Yeah.
resources available, and we've come a long way.
Right.
But that was how I initially uncovered you, because you were very prolific and doing a lot to help job seekers at that time. So
Well, you had like a 4-year jump on me. You have posts that go back to 2007. That's about when you started, right?
yeah, just about
Yeah.
2008, I
Yeah.
think.
Okay. Okay. All right.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's been a fun ride for sure. And I want to
Yeah.
thank the people that are here now watching us. Thank you so much. Mark is the founder of the Voice of Job Seekers, which is a website and a blog, a website and a podcast for
Hmm.
job seekers. So I hope that if people, as we sort of go through this, people will learn more about how really wonderful you are. The other cool thing, Mark, that I love that you do, you found sort of your medium. You have two different podcasts weekly, or
Yes.
live shows. One of
Live
them
shows. Yeah.
is Job Seeker Nation,
Hmm.
which is Wednesdays at 1. Is that correct? And then the
That's
Modern
correct.
Job Search Checklist, Fridays at 1 p.m. So
Yes.
that's a lot that you have going on. So thank you. I'm glad you made the time for me to be here today. I don't
Sure.
know how you do it all.
I don't either. My wife is saying, "You're doing something else now. You have time to breathe." So
Yeah.
yeah, I love doing it. I love doing it, and it keeps me completely engaged and sometimes a little entertained for various reasons.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is what I do, and believe it, I spend quite a bit of time. If I'm not writing and reading, I am talking to people. So
Yeah.
that's a good thing.
Well, this is how you keep current with what's going on in the marketplace, like reading
Yes,
and talking to people, and yeah,
yes.
so it makes sense. So, what do you think? Like, what is one thing that you want job seekers to know about job search today?
Hmm. That's a very interesting question. I had like I couldn't nail down one, but I'm going to try to be succinct as possible. I think job seekers need to be ready to show employers that they are the prescription to the job seeker to the employer's job description. Is the way I like to put it. Uh, I think job seekers need to learn and practice and hone a skill in such a way that they're able to offer solutions to employers in a prescriptive manner that is clear, that is organized, that is direct. That you may not have the exact answer that they necessarily want, but they gotta like and understand your thinking based on the knowledge that they offer. In other words, you can ascertain what they are wanting, and that you can give it back to them the way they should go about having it. Even if it's entirely different than their approach, you have to be the one to have some thought and some strategy behind it. So if the opportunities make sense during the hiring process, offer solutions that are relevant to the position that you're going to be a part of, and that you're going to have enough intelligence to be able to pivot where you need to pivot, and to be able to pick up where you need to pick up.
And so I love the fact that you say that the job seeker needs to be the prescription to the employer's job description. That is so
Hmm.
important. And I think that, there's one person, Naveed, has this question. He is a graduate. He's looking for a graduate electrical engineering job, and he just completed his education. Can you please give me some tips? And so, Naveed, I hope you just heard what Mark said, because nobody cares about what you've just acquired. They care that you can be a solution to their problem, right?
Yeah.
So that's where I think the shift would be helpful for job seekers. I think especially new grads, a lot of times they think, I just got this new degree, everybody will want me. But that's not it all the time. Tell them what they
Yeah.
need to know.
Yeah. Well, this past weekend, my wife and I were looking for a restaurant to go to. And we particularly wanted shrimp, and we didn't want the little tiny shrimps at some restaurant. We want like the big giant ones. So we had to go to different places. We had to go to Yelp. We had to go to different review sites to find the restaurant where they serve this shrimp. And you had to get really specific and also look at the other users and what their experiences were. We found the restaurant. We found the biggest shrimp we've ever seen, and they were delicious. They weren't 100, they were about 99 out of 100, which, you're never going to have the perfect experience, but that's the same zeal and the same diligence that job seekers need to do with employers. If you want the experience that you want to have, you got to look for it like you do restaurants. And I know the young people, especially, they're big on looking at restaurants, then looking at the reviews to see what the experience is, because good food and a bad experience is a bad experience. And for job seekers, finding a job that you want but having a bad experience is a bad experience. So I think they need to have that kind of intentional approach to finding the jobs that they want. And that's not just for young people, it's for the older folks too. We have to do that due diligence, which a lot of us don't want to do, because we think a job is a job, and we buy into what our grandparents have passed on to us. You just work hard and you'll make it and you'll do well. And working hard for everybody wasn't the same antidote that pays the bills that other people have done. You've got to do a whole lot more than that now. That is really kind of the assumption that you're going to work hard. Nobody in America says, I plan not to really work hard. Nobody does that. So I think people need to have that kind of attention.
Absolutely. Hi, Jude. And I'm surprised too at how little job seekers investigate companies. But they won't research they'll research them, but then they won't research the companies, right? So,
Exactly.
right.
Yep.
And I think it's because it's not easy. It
Right.
isn't easy to research companies and to find companies that are really going to give you what the experience that you are looking for. But the other thing is, before we even sometimes turn to Yelp or any of those review sites to find the perfect big shrimp,
Right.
sometimes we ask people, right? We ask
Right.
other foodies, we ask our friends and family, where do you go to get the best shrimp, right?
Right.
Who has the biggest shrimp? And I think that
Yeah.
that's one of the safest things that we could do. And we oftentimes don't think of that as a solution to uncovering potential companies. So ask people what companies are the ones that you would turn to if you were looking for a job as an entry level engineer out of school. Where did your son or daughter get first job after they graduated from school? Right?
Mhm.
Why don't we ask that? Those are great questions. I wish we asked them more often.
Yeah, and I wish people would be willing to do it. It is hard work, and it takes time to do it. That's why I've always said in the years, and you've heard me say it a number of times now, that job search is a lifestyle now. It is not something you could just put aside and expect for it to do itself when it's time to find a job. If you're looking for a job when you've lost a job,
Too
you're a
late.
year behind. You're a year behind, and sometimes light years behind,
Yeah.
because you've got to not only find the job, but you also have to keep up with what their industry trends are. Because if they're trending one way, you're head to another, then you look outdated and you're not going to be a fit for the job.
Right. Absolutely. The average number of years in a job these days is 3, right? Isn't that about it? 3 years?
Right? And it's trending less. It's
Hmm.
about one. I've seen 1 to 3 years, depending upon who you know. These surveys they run differently, but I think people have to know that you don't have time. You don't have 10 years anymore. You don't have five. You barely have 5 years. 5 years, if you make it to 5 years, great, but it's not guaranteed.
So if you're not always looking, when that time comes for you to make a change, it's going to be really hard. And
It,
we
it
don't want that to be hard. We want it to
and,
be a lifestyle.
and much more competitive.
Yeah.
With
And I always
capability.
say, like, I want the job seeker to have a choice. There is
Yes.
power when you have a choice, right? So
Yes.
you're in a great job that you love. Go take that interview. Find out what
Hmm.
that job is all about. Maybe it's better, maybe it's not, but at least you have a choice.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. So
Completely.
let's talk about this boomerang hiring stuff that's going on. So, and I can't remember, like, there are just lots of HR people talking about it. And one of the reasons, so a boomerang, just to make sure we're all on the same page here, people
Hmm.
listening, a boomerang is somebody who leaves a company and
Hmm.
then comes back to the company.
Yes.
And so we're seeing, according to a lot of the HR recruiting data, that more companies are rehiring past employees. Why is this? What's going on?
Right. Well, our friend Shelley Piedmont, actually, and giving a shout out to her, she recently posted something on her LinkedIn post where it talks a little bit about how there was a study, and I guess it was a LinkedIn study, how they analyzed 32 million LinkedIn members' jobs histories, and it ranges from 10 months to a couple of years where people would leave and then eventually come back. So, and the industries are different. There's some that are probably harder to return to than others. But all that to say is that it becomes a very challenging thing. And I was reading in Business Insider recently about how boomerangs, they were coming back to the jobs, but they're also coming back in higher roles, right? So, or better yet, they're getting paid more even if they come to the same role because they've been out and been back. So imagine your coworker who's always been there the past 2 years have been gone. They may have only gotten one raise because the COVID year is kind of a write-off. You gave that almost free to the company except for the regular paycheck, but
Yeah.
you likely couldn't gotten a raise. However, the person that was able to go got at least 10%. I think when people say they get five, I don't know anybody who gets a 5% raise just for jumping a company unless you showed yourself desperate. You got at least 10%. So not only you got 10% going, but you got 10% coming back. So you already have eclipsed what your coworkers have done. And it's creating this very interesting dynamic when people go. But the interesting thing is there's another thing that Robert Half did was they were able to look at how people were then, how long did that person stay once they boomerang back? Well, not very long, not even 2 years. So there's two dynamics. There's one where the person leaves and you come back and there they are, but then you leave again and that person's still sitting there getting their 2 to 3% raise and you just got another 10 to 20%. So, it's very interesting how people are looking at loyalty and all those things that used to be socially valuable, but not particularly equitable when it comes to pay.
Yeah, that's a big thing. Hello to my friend Rosa, and Rosa is a boomerang. She left and came back, and I think it can be different. There's some companies you would never go back to, right?
Right, right, because of the toxicity and a lot of we can go on and on about that.
Yeah. So Rebecca Delaney, hi Rebecca. Is the short-term jobs thing today because companies are letting you go, or people don't say? And I think the answer is it's a combination of both.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I
And we
think people
like
have to, but I think people have to understand that, you can also read the tea leaves And knowing that when people are companies, I mean, not everybody's better.com, right? So likely there's a statute in the state that that the company has to kind of let you know that there are imminent layoffs, that they're about to come. That should tell you a couple of things, and you should listen to what's going on. And that's why, again, when job search is a lifestyle, you've already prepped your network, you already prepped some research, and that's already on your heart. That pivot should be a whole lot easier than thinking that you're surprised.
Yeah. I think the other issue that we've got going on right now is that employers are having a hard time filling the number of vacancies they have.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And so they know who their past employees were, and they know who their desirable past employees were. So it's not hard to track those people down and try and lure them back in with more
Right.
money and whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
Yeah.
I think
So
that's very
boomerang
important to
hiring
know.
is a thing. And I want to normalize it, right? I don't want people to think there's anything wrong with it.
Right.
It comes with some caution, right?
Mm-hmm.
Knowing about pay and how that's all going to be perceived internally and how it might ruffle some feathers. But it's
Mm-hmm.
a thing, and there's no shame in that at all. Let's talk about hybrid work. What are you seeing
Okay.
around hybrid work?
Well, lots of debate. Um, I just find it interesting that there are a lot of people who are cheering for companies when they demand for people to come back to work. They said, that's right. When are people going to get it right? And, you see all these different posts about it. And to me, it's almost like denial in some sense. But in another sense, I understand where they're coming from. They're thinking, and some people have been CFOs and CEOs, so you kind of know and can empathize with them as far as the challenges of getting people to come back. But I think the debate is innately about trust, family, and life, ultimately. And I've said before that the whole great resignation thing that we're going on, first of all, right now, to me, is not all that great. And I don't think it's that much more about, I don't think it's that much more about resignation as it was when it previously was. I think the resignation part is normalized now, that we're getting used to. People have found out the secret. I can go get 10% if I walk across the street to the competitor, and I can get the same thing. And even if you're manufacturing, you said they have the same union, so I can go and keep my union, keep my union benefits and get 10% more, maybe five, or maybe collective bargaining is a little bit different. So there's a different dynamic. All that to say that really people are a little bit more intentional about getting to that point. But there's that debate of what actually is this thing that we're going through is about. And people are in denial and understanding that people are not going to go back the way it was anymore. It's not going to look the same, and that needs to be accepted, whether it's going to be a hybrid or they want 100%. And really, people are starting to write their own checks when it comes to having that privilege now, because they can actually go work for a company in Spain and work at home.
Yeah.
Understand that, right? That's the gray line has been removed. That remote working also removes the distance to going to the office. So
Yeah.
I think that you have to make those considerations when you're thinking about
So, and you touched about something, and it really is about trust, right?
it. Yes, it is.
And trust is a two-way street. So, do the CEOs, leaders not trust their employees to be productive? Is that why they want them back in the office? Does the employee not trust that the leader of their organization is going to do right by them? So, I think that trust is a huge issue here, and I think
Hmm.
that it's so important for job seekers to really explore and ask questions around the kinds of behaviors that might be important to them that would establish trust for the job seeker. So I know that I'm working with some job seekers, and they say, right now they're saying that the job is remote, but they can't guarantee that it will remain remote
Yeah.
forever. I'm like, I get that, but what can they guarantee? right? So if
Right.
they're not going to
Right.
guarantee that it's going to be remote, what will they guarantee? It's just asking those questions like it would be asking of any business transaction. It's not a personal thing. It's a business transaction. Just ask the question so you get the answer.
Right. I think that as well is that people are also looking for something a little bit different than money now. I won't
Mhm.
say, even though we see a lot of job hopping, the job hopping isn't completely about, first of all, there are people who are leaving their jobs even without a landing spot or a parachute because they are part of a toxic environment. And I think the one thing that employers should be doing is asking those questions: where's this coming from, or am I part of the problem?
Right.
Unfortunately, they won't say whether they're part of the problem or not. But definitely, they need to look for solutions to get rid of that. But I think people are also looking to work for companies that share their values, especially younger people. You know, in my generation, I don't know if we're in the same generation or not,
I
but
think we are.
the baby boomer generation.
Oh, I'm not a
Uh,
boomer.
you're not a boomer, yeah.
I'm an X.
You're close, but all that to say is that our foundation was the again going back to the loyalty and this job stability and really job. Let's talk about job stability for a second. Let's toss out job stability as we used to know it as being 5 years and you got vested. Can we talk about that? Because how much
That's
is
not
that
happening.
beginning that's beginning to shrink? So we have to so when people say, I want to find a stable job, you might find a stable company that has enough money to pay you. That doesn't mean your job is stable because you could be a part of a department where they're going to cut one to grow another. So all of those things could really affect the way that you look at the job market from now on, is that you've got to look at the job market as sort of a way to cascade or to add to your career development. So each
It's
move you
career
make should be no
stability,
different.
right? It's career
It's
stability. It's not
absolutely,
owned by the employer or the company or
yeah.
the role, right? It's
So
you owning it.
it needs to be gutted and reframed now as to being a career stability is that you've got to create your own, and truly it is up to you to do that. Nobody else can do it. There's not a job that can do it now. I understand that some jobs are now starting to bring in career coaches and consultants as to how they can navigate the internal waters, but even there that could collapse in a moment. So there's no guarantee that those things
Right. Is
will
it the
happen.
flavor of the year, right? We've
Yeah,
seen that.
absolutely. Yep,
Oh,
yep. So
absolutely.
it's a tough thing to navigate right now because there's still a lot of uncertainty. But you go where things are certain now, but you just got to be ready to pivot or jump when you need to.
And I don't think it's as hard next time. For those that are making this big pivot or shift now, it seems monumental,
Yeah.
but it's not that hard.
No,
It gets easier the next time you do it.
no, it's comfortable when you want to be somewhere for a long time. And comfort isn't a job strategy anymore. Getting settled in a job is not a job strategy anymore. I got a chance to work through someone's workplace recently to meet with them. It's very interesting. People came back to work, but I noticed that people don't have pictures of their families and things like that anymore on the desk. You remember back in the 90s and the early 2000s when people bought their personal effects and put it all around their cubicle or their work, at least their desk. That people are not doing that anymore as much as they did in the past, because I think some people have been clued in that I'm not going to be here that long and there's no use in me growing roots here. And I think that's a great career strategy within itself as far as the mindset's concerned that is going to be next,
Yeah.
ultimately.
I have a feeling that the broadcast may have been dropped. So I'm going to ask if anybody can hear us still. Can you please put a comment in the stream? Because I'm getting this warning saying that we're having trouble streaming to LinkedIn. So if anybody can still hear me and Mark, let us know.
Yeah, let us know. I hope.
I
If
hope.
not, yeah, sometimes it plays tricks on you. Believe me, I've been through it all.
Oh, you have. Nice. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
So it looks like, okay, so let me just see what this says. So you can still hear me, Raquel? 12:25. I'm sort of looking at my clock to see if that's good. Okay, maybe we're still good. Who knows? At least we can. We'll work it, right?
Sure. Right. Yeah. Yeah. I can lie.
Okay, so changing career paths, is that harder or easier today? Making that career shift?
Depending on the industry.
Yeah.
It totally depends on the industry. And if you are in healthcare, there might be a little bit more wiggle room. If you're in tech, but if you're willing to make the jump to cybersecurity, apparently there are about 600,000 to 1 million jobs that are available.
And
So
cybersecurity hasn't been around all that long to have a lot of people with that experience. So what I
yes,
think you're saying is it might be easier to shift into cybersecurity due to the high
there
demand.
there are teachers and nurses who have made that shift
Mm,
to that. It took them a little time, but I think they got wore out by the pandemic and wore out by the job hazards that are associated with it. So there are a few of them, two that I think of specifically that were able to make that shift. One was to cybersecurity. The other one was to another type of technology I never even heard of, so I couldn't tell you what it was. But having said that, it is kind of a whole low hanging fruit when it's a new technology because there's no degree and
right.
they may not be a certification. So you might have a shot if you show yourself to be tech savvy, that you can learn quickly and that you are willing to go and get something else if need be. If you can prove those things and that you're great to work with, then you might be in.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that and how would people figure this stuff out, whether or not they could make that career shift? Like, is there a magic formula to make that happen?
I'm afraid there's no magic shift. There's the desire to want to learn is probably the biggest thing, and that you have sort of this um, motivated discontent. In other words, you're motivated and you're unsatisfied wherever you are in your career. That you're ready to make that jump, and you're willing to find out what it will take. So you go and you start talking to a whole bunch of people who are in that field, and you meet that one person and say, "Hey, you know, these are some things you can probably do right now to get your foot in the door." And sometimes that's all it takes.
Yeah. So again, it goes both to having those conversations, doesn't it, Mark?
Yeah, it does. I mean, really, that's really the magic elixir. But you've got to have productive conversations, not just ask people for a job. You've got to go with inquiry mind, ask the right questions, and just try to win that person over. And it takes a little bit of time. It's not something that's going to happen on the first meeting, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. So I wanted to also give another shout out to one of your major accomplishments this year. Max List named The Voice of Job Seekers as one of the top podcasts of 2022. And for those of you that like podcasts, there's a whole list of podcasts here for careers and job search on Max List. So please check that out. Mark is one of them. How many years have you been on Max List now? Making the time.
Uh, 5 years
Yeah.
since the inception of it. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's kind of cool to
You were
be in
one of
all
the
the
first.
records.
Yeah.
Yeah, and continue to this day, and it's really great. And Mac really does take a big interest in podcasts. I think as soon as he found life different, and has his own great podcast where he's had tons of guests. He's had more guests now than I have. I've slowed down to where it seems like he just has kept the ship rolling
Hmm.
despite all the changes that have happened. So shout out to Mac Pritchard.
Yeah. Mac Pritchard. Thank you, Mac, for all the work that you do to help job seekers. Hey,
Absolutely.
Mark, we're winding down here, and I'm
Hmm.
hoping that this didn't die on us. I did want to give a plug. Next Tuesday, my guest is Virginia Franco, and she's going to talk about career storytelling. So I'm looking
Hmm.
forward to having her here. Mark, what do you have going on that we need to know about?
Let's see. Well, the live streams are back this week. We took last week off because I was in Philadelphia, but this week we got Job Seeker Nation. That's going to be on tomorrow, 1 p.m. Eastern. And we'll have Jim Black. He's a career coach. And then on Friday, the Modern Job Search Checklist, same time, uh, just different day on Friday. And Nicolette Barrett is on the show, or Barnett. I keep mixing up Barrett and Barnett, but she knows who she is. She's going to be on the show on Friday. She's been on the show before. She's been on both shows before. So look forward to having another great conversation with her.
Thank you for your time today, Mark, for squeezing me into your busy schedule. Thank you for
Thank you.
sharing your perspective and your knowledge and your expertise. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you. I'm lucky to be on. Thank you
Yeah,
very much for having me.
thank you. Take care.
Take care.